Wow, it is hot. It is hot and it is, wow, breakfast isn't even over at the drive-thru yet. Hmm. Gotta love summer, especially in climates you've never been to. Yeah. Hello, this is Shari again with another live YouTube video of just my opinion, my personal opinion piece channel, as it were. Remember to keep the comments according to the platform's community guidelines. If you can't control yourself, or I suggest not controlling yourself. If you want to send a comment that's not to the community guidelines, email them to me at just.my.opinion.podcast2020@gmail.com. I want to thank all of my subscribers. I want to thank everybody who shares these videos. I want to thank everyone who comments and likes what they see when I'm live. Now this morning's live video is going to have a different title to it, and I'll explain to you what's going on. But this title is just as appropriate. Don't call me. I just want to let you know, don't call me before I am fully caffeinated. I'm still not fully caffeinated. In fact, I probably should not be live right now without having food and caffeination. But aside from that, you guys, well, most guys and gals, men and women, boys and girls, most people know or have heard of or have picked up their phone and heard a robocall on the other line. Please press 1 to speak to an agent. Please press 2 to be put on no call list. Please press 3 to receive an adult toy. Whichever. They give you a choice. And this morning I received one of those. It sounds legit, but it really made me suspicious. So I got this call this morning about the recording was from the Social Security Administration. I was in trouble for some sort of activity with my Social Security number, and please press 1 to speak to an agent. Otherwise, we're going to send the cops to your house, drag you out into the street, stuff you into a car. And oh wait, that's a different thing. But anyway, the recording threatens to send law enforcement to your location. I'm like, or press 1, and I'm like, I'm just the kind of person who would press 1. So I pressed 1, and I got a female voice, a woman's voice, identifying herself as an officer of the law. Pretty sure impersonating law enforcement. I mean, if this person was legitimately law enforcement, the conversation would have progressed differently. But let me give you the nuts and bolts of it so you can make your own decision. Just let me give you my information, and based only on my opinion of what I think happened. I pressed 1. I got a lady who identified herself as an officer before giving me her name and asked me for my case number. I'm like, I don't have a case number. I don't know what you're talking about. Why am I getting these calls? And you have to be suspicious of these calls, especially when they pause, when they don't have a response right away for you, that they have to kind of pause and think about it for a second, especially if you hear typing in the background. This is what kind of made me nervous, is because every time I asked a question back or I tried to get information from her, there was this pause. It's almost very suspiciously like somebody reading from a script. So she made the comment that, well, if I couldn't give her my case number, then I needed to give her the the zip code from where I was calling. I'm like, I go, I need to know more about what's going on here. And she reiterated what the recording said, my social security number, illegal activity, yada, yada, and so forth. So I pressed her for more information from her. I'm like, hey, I can, I can't help you unless I know what agency you're calling from, what the issue is, what is it that I'm being accused of. And another pause. Then she read off, or what? Okay, I don't know if she was reading. I don't know if she was reading on the other side of the telephone. I do know that her response was rapid fire. And I certainly know what I sound like when I am reading off of a script. If you've ever followed my audio podcast, first 3 episodes, I sound like Stephen Hawking. I don't sound like this. I'm not relaxed. I'm not, extemporaneous. She proceeded to tell me that officers will come to my location at my known address. And I continued to press her. I go, okay, so which address do you have on file? Click. I've gone through situations like this before, and years ago, it was a call from someone claiming to be from the IRS, that there was back taxes owed on my account. The IRS was going to do this, the IRS was going to do that, which is really weird, number one, because I had just filed my taxes. I was getting a refund. I was all caught up on anything that had been pending in prior years that I either didn't file or didn't pay. So I know that my account was square with the IRS. I had been duped into giving too much information in the call until I realized, like, wait, hold on a second. You're just telling me to write a check. You're like, just write a check and all will be good. Or send us your routing number and your account information off of your check. And I kept pressing. I decided, like, okay, then this is enough. This is enough. You need to give me information. I go, okay, so how much do I write the check for? That's when I was able to turn the tables. I asked, okay, how much do I owe you? What's the balance? Well, you just have to send us the information. Homie, don't play that. No. So I said, okay, I need an exact amount so I can get a money order sent. And I also need a mailing address so I can send a money order, because I'm not sending a personal check. I will send a money order, a government issued from the post office money order, which is legitimate money. It's legitimate. And it's prepaid. And it is traced through the United States monetary system. So they're claiming to be a government agency for this government, for our country, but they're unwilling to let you do anything except expose your personal information. And I kept pressing the guy. I go, I want the total. And I want a mailing address where I can send you that total. And it's almost like he got to the end of his script. And he's like, hold on, let me transfer you to my supervisor. I was on hold like an idiot for 2 minutes. And then finally the line cut. So yes. Reminds me, this whole situation makes me think of all the rules upon redundant rules that we're all facing now. And rules are necessary. Guidelines are necessary. Fences are necessary. Locked doors are necessary. Borders that are secure are necessary to define allegiance and security in our lives. When we are approached by an officer of the law, we go, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Okay? When they approach you, you are in their custody until they decide to you along. Okay? You got to realize that. You don't have to like it. You know, whether you've done nothing wrong or not, it's yes, officer. That is authority. That is obedience to authority. In fact, there's a book titled Obedience to Authority. Stanley Milgram. Highly recommend it. It's a very upsetting read. I'm still going through it because I can only take certain chunks at a time before I get upset. Before I get upset about how people can follow authority blindly without questioning. Now, when a police officer is in front of you and he's identified himself, police officers normally have a business card that identify them, their badge number, their, I guess, what is it called, a precinct, or where their police station is. Most legitimate officers will give you the name of their supervisor, will call their supervisor to the scene. If you feel uncomfortable, there is a statutory SOP, standard operating procedure. I mean, legitimate officers, like when you say, hey, I don't feel comfortable, or can I have a matron here because I'm female, I'm a woman, I need a matron here for this interchange, especially, female citizen, male officer. I have yet to encounter a situation where the officer's like, the officer gets on his horn, calls for someone to the scene. Sometimes it's a supervisor. Sometimes, and I'm making it sound like I've had a lot of interactions with officers, and I haven't. I have dealt with authority with respect for, you don't have to like the person, but you respect the office in which they hold. And back to Milgram. Stanley Milgram's book, well, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it discusses in general how people, knowing full well that an action is wrong, will still comply because they feel that they ultimately and personally will not be responsible for this action that may or may not be criminal. Little preview without giving it away, because it's, and I recommend I recommend reading it in smaller chunks, because it can be upsetting. It can be upsetting to the fact that the further people are away, like I said, from the consequences of their own actions, the more likely they are to do it if they feel somebody else will take responsibility and the punitive results of what they do. Getting back to my phone calls, well, this morning's phone call. It is amazing to me how, and you may think this ties in, you may think it doesn't. Remember, this is all just my opinion. It's only my opinion as to why this is happening. But in my opinion, the reason that this is happening ties back. Whereas when people feel that the authority themselves will take responsibility for their actions, they're more likely to do something. And the more rules that people have on their lives, the more that they're willing to submit to authority. Even when something just doesn't, that spidey sense in your brain is like, I'm not feeling comfortable, but I'll go along with it, just see where it goes. And sometimes you never see how it ends up. So I highly recommend that you have respect for authority. And legitimate authority, when you don't have to push back. But you can say, okay, well, I'm uncomfortable in this situation. I'm uncomfortable with giving you this information. Can I have the name of your supervisor? Can your supervisor speak with me? And just as a reassurance, it's like, yeah, you're not some actor or bad actor dressed up as authority with all the official paperwork. I mean, because they do that when people go door to door and knock and say, we're from the energy company. Can you give us your information about your electrical account? I've been duped before because it all seems legit. But you have to, and you will learn, hopefully, that legitimate authority, when pressed for proof, will not fold like a flan in the cupboard. They'll be like, here, ta-da, here's my business card. Ta-da, my supervisor will be here in 5 minutes. Ta-da. I have no problem with it. Legitimate authority has no trouble being asked to show their credentials. So, like this phone call I had. Oh, by the way, this phone call, the title of this live video was going to be the telephone number from this phone call. Before going live, I called this number back on a different phone from which they contacted me. I'm pretty sure that telephone number was cloned because the lady who picked up had no clue what I was talking about. No clue. So I told her the situation. I told her a breakdown of what happened during the call. And I said, beware, which is weird because I had a sense of deja vu. Like I've lived this exact moment. It's kind of like anyway, I'll get into deja vu in other videos. So it felt very familiar. But I called this lady up and I said, you're not the person who just called me? No. Sounds like somebody cloned her telephone number to make it look like it was a local number. And I guess anyone calling back would get hurt, which is a shame. Told her, block my number, I'll block yours, and all will be right in the world. And hopefully she lets her friends and family know what's going on. So even if I reported this number to the fraud line, it would just go back to a private citizen, which is really frustrating. Really frustrating when you're trying to report possible fraudulent phone calls and phishing expeditions, as it were. You can't, because it only blames a private citizen, which just totally blows. Just my opinion. That's breakdown of what happened this morning. If you would like to comment on this video and share your experience, just.my.opinion.podcast2020@gmail.com. That is also where you can contact me for my Cash App information to support the YouTube channel. And I'm hoping to get back to the podcast. Looking at some employment that might put a damper on the podcast, or at least as long as I don't use my employment to promote my personal activities, I'll have to get more information, and I'll have an update for you on that as well. I would be sad to say goodbye to the podcast and the YouTube channel, but sister's got to eat, I mean, look at me. I've got to maintain 170 somehow. So God bless. God surrounds you with his grace. And all my sisters and brothers in Christ, walk carefully, walk proudly, think with clarity. And yeah, I do appreciate everyone who has I got a like on the video. Awesome, thank you. I appreciate all the likes. I appreciate when people share. I appreciate every comment. Like I said, if you have a comment that goes against this platform's community standards, send it to just.my.opinion.podcast2020@gmail.com. And I appreciate anyone who chooses to subscribe. I thank you for the blessings, and you have a very wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day. I think I'm still live. I'm not sure. I can't tell.